Om Badram Karnebihi Shruniyama Devaha Badram Pashyema Akshabihir Yajatraha Sthirairangayir Tushtuvam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swastinaha Indro Vridrashravaha Swastinaha Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinaha Tarksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Bruhaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi Yo antah pravishya mama vacha imam prashuptam sanjeevayati akila shakti darasvadamna anyamshcha hastacharana shravanatvagaadin pranan namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam lasatu shrimadananda tirtendurno hrudambare yadvachaschandrika swanta santapam vinikrantati पदवाक्य प्रमाणज्ञान प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथा भूतं विष्णु तत्व विनिर्णयम्. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening for friends for the 23rd part of Atharvana Upanishad, also called Mundaka Upanishad. So let's think about the Devata, which is who is Aksharanamaka Paramatma, all the gurus, Atharva, Angirasa, Satyavaha, Angirasa, Shuanaka, and all the acharyas who have given us the bhashyas, and the chandas, which is primarily in Anushtup chandas for this particular Upanishad. So we are currently in the Dvitiya Mundake Pratama Kandaha, and we are in the 6th verse. Before that, the 5th verse, we did this beautiful verse, Tasmad Agnihi Sabido Yasya Suryaha Somat Parjanyaha Oshadayaha Prithvyam Puman Retas Sinchati Yoshitayam Bhakvi Prajaha Purushat Samprasutaha Tasmad Richaha Sama Yajumshi Dikshaha Yajnashcha Sarve Kratavo Dakshinashcha Samvatsarashcha Yajamanashcha Lokaha Somo Yatra Pavate Yatra Suryaha. So this is the verse that we are in at this point, 6th verse. So what is going on here? So in this particular Khanda, we are talking about creation, right? We're talking about the creation of the universe and how when you look at a fire, when you look at a fire pit or a Yajna Kunda, you just don't say verses and throw stuff in, but actually you think about that Agni as Paramatma, and then you think about how that the Agni Kunda has got various components, and then when you look at that fire, when you look at the sparks that you're coming out, then you understand how this creation of the souls and everything else is coming about. Then we understood who this Paramatma here with the second verse, Divyo hi amurtaha purushaha sabahya vyantaro hi ajaha aprano hi manaha shubro aksharat paratah paraha. Remember this one, Aksharat Paratah Paraha. This Agni Narayana was celebrated as Aksharat Paratah Paraha. There we understood chapter 15, the last 5 verses, and how Krishna declared himself as Purushottama. Yetasmat jayate prano manaho sarva indriyane cha kam vayur jyoti rapaha prithvi vishwasya dharini. So these sparks that are coming out of this kunda is not a random event. Angirasa teaches Shuanaka that this creation happens in a sequence. There is a sequence that happens during creation. It is well structured, very ordered. Who comes first? Who comes next? So that is described. Then Agni, Murda, Chakshushi, Chandra, Surya, Yoho, Dishaha, Shrote, Vag, Vivrutashta Vedaha, Vayuhu, Prane, Hrudayam, Vishwamasya, Padbyam, Prithvihi, Esha, Sarvabhutantaratma. Here he said, from which components of Brahman do various Tattvabhimamini Devatas come out? So that is described in this particular verse. Remember, Vag Vivrutashta Vedaha. So that is important for discussion, isn't it? Which is what we've been doing last session and this session. We have been expanding on this particular words. Vak Vivrutashta Vedaha. From the Brahman's speech came, from the Brahman's mouth came all these Vedas. So that is what we are talking about here. What is it that came out here? Vak Vivrutashta Vedaha. Tasmad Richaha Sama Yajumshi. That is where we are. We are spending the last fortnight thinking about this. When these Vedas come out of Brahman, and Vivritashta, Vividashta means Vividashta. They come in various forms that just come out of Brahman. And that is what Tasmad. What is it that came out? Tasmad Richaha Sama Ejumshi. Okay, so that becomes very important. And we're kind of, I wouldn't say stuck here, we're kind of situated here at this point, because this is a very significant statement from Angirasa when he talks about these Vedas coming out of Brahman. Okay. So last week we understood that Vak Vivrutashta Vedaha. So Vedaha, what are the Vedas? Padya. So you have Rig Veda, Sama Veda, you have Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. So let us look at Veda, Rig Veda, Padya in poetry. Sama Veda, all of Rigs set in music is Gana, which is Sama Veda. Yajur Veda is primarily set in prose, Gadya. Atharva Veda is not a separate Veda. It is it is preserved by Atharva, who is the son of Chaturmukha, who preserves a portion of Rig Veda and Yajur Veda and gives it to his family and disciples. So that is called Atharva Veda, which is a combination of both poetry and prose. Okay, so that would make it as 4 Vedas. But if you look at Padya, Gadya, and Gana, then Vedas are primarily only 3. And we've dealt with this in great details in the previous sessions. So then we also looked at the validity of the Vedas. So if this Vak is coming out of Brahman, Vak Vivrutashta Vedaha, then the question is that Vak valid? Okay. That brought us to this idea of thinking about validity of the Vedas. This is foundational for us as practitioners of Sanatana Dharma, that we have to have the Shraddha, and at the same time we have to have this idea firmly engraved in our consciousness that Vedas are the supreme authoritative text for practitioners of Sanatana Dharma. And why do we say that? Because of 3 reasons. Veda is Apaurishaya. Veda is Nitya. Veda is Swataha Pramanya. So Apaurushaya means what? It is authorless. Okay, and we looked at this difficult idea a couple of weeks ago as to what does that authorless actually means. What is that philosophy of that authorlessness? So there we understood that the signs of sound in Vedic philosophy, that sound has 2 components. One is the unmanifested component of sound, and the manifested component of sound, as we call as Dwani, and the unmanifested component called as Varanas. What are we doing in this satsang when we discuss various topics? We manifest sound. So that is Dwani. We are using our vocal cords, which is vibrating, and that sends pressure waves in the atmosphere, and that pressure waves hits our eardrum, and then we perceive the sound. Okay, so that is the manifested component of sound, which is Anitya. When I say something, you have heard something, it is gone. Whereas underneath that is the Varana component, which is unmanifested. And our rishis have intuited that these Varanas are eternal and they are all pervasive. To try and understand this, we did an experiment in Zoom, if you recall, a couple of weeks ago, where we all said, Aha iti Brahma. And then we said, look, in different continents, we are saying it. And the same thing also in Aitareya, Rishi also said that thousands and thousands of years ago. So it is the same Varana that is being brought into manifestation by us. Pratyabhijna, as it's called. Yeah, Pratyabhijna is the word in Vedic parlance. So that Pratyabhijna is there. So the recognition of the same Varana that is brought into manifestation. That tells us that it is eternal. And the fact that in various continents, we said the same Aha iti Brahma tells us that Varana, Akara Varana is all pervasive. And that is where Acharya brings this idea of what is that Veda all about? It is not something that is written in textbook. It is the eternal sequence of eternal Varanas set in a particular sequence that forms the eternal Veda. So this is the key concept that we have to understand. Eternal sequence of eternal Varanas form the eternal Vedas. Varanadayas tat kramatmako vedasya nitya eveti siddham, as Acharya says in Vishnu Tattva Nirnaya. Yeah. So that Varanas in eternal sequence that has been there in endless creations. So that is the science of sound, which is quite interesting and actually quite profound about how sounds are unmanifested and manifested. Okay. Now, this is the new slides for today. So all well and good that we have come with a theory that Varanas are eternal and that eternal sequence of certain Varanas make the Vedas. And these Vedas are Apaurushaya and it is Nitya. Okay. So for the Nitya, we also understood that these Vedas have always been in the mind of Brahman eternally. Because creation is an eternal cycle in Vedic philosophy, right? There was never a point, there was the first creation that happened. If first creation happened, then you could say that the Vedas came out of Brahman and Brahman composed the Vedas. But our Vedic philosophy is creation cycles are eternal. There was never a point where creation started. It has been going on forever. So similarly, these Vedas, this eternal sequence of eternal Varnas have always been in the mind of Brahman. And all that he does is he brings forth into, when every time creation happens, it just emerges into manifestation. So that is the Nityatva of Veda. And at the same time, that is also the proof to say why even Brahman did not compose the Vedas. Okay, so this is quite a deep idea and a concept that you need to contemplate on. That the Vedic philosophy, when I say apaurushaya, Paurushaya, Purusha there does not mean just a human being or some exalted sentient being. It also includes Brahman himself. Brahman is also Purusha, right? But Vedas are Apaurushaya because it's always eternally be in Brahman's mind. So it's a complex idea. So you just need to be thinking about this. But that is the fundamental Vedic position. Even Vedas were not actually composed by Brahman, but they've always been in Brahman eternally. So that is the idea there, Nitya. Okay. So this idea of Nitya, you might ask, where is the proof for this Vedas are Nitya or eternal? So the proof for that comes from the Vedas itself. So the Vedas themselves declare. Look at this. Look at this particular verse in Rig Veda. Tasmai nunam abidyeva vacha virupa nityaya. Yeah. Virupa is a rishi, and the Rig Veda, which we all consider as the oldest text of mankind. Yeah. And that there is no doubt there. Vedas are the oldest texts. Rig Veda is the oldest text of mankind. And that Rig Veda itself says, Vacha Nityaya. So the oldest text itself says this Veda is Nitya. Virupa used this Vacha Nityaya to understand Paramatma. And Acharya, of course, cites various Shruti texts. Paingini Shruti and Katyayana Shruti. Nityaya, Anityaya, Staumi Brahmatat Paramam Padam. Shrutirvava Nityaya. Anityaya Vava Smrutayo Yashta Anyaya Vacha. Shrutirvava Nityaya. Again, Vedas itself say. Vijneyam Paramam Brahma Nyapika Parama Shrutihi. Anadi Nitya Satacha Vinatam Nasagamyate. So this Veda is Anadi Nitya. Sahasrada Mahimanaha Sahasram Yavad Brahmanishtam Tavati Vak. Kaschandasam Yogama Veda Dhiraha Kodishyam Prativacham Prapada. Infinite are the Brahman's glory, and each glory is infinite in range. The extent of Veda is the same as Brahman in respect of time and space, that is all pervasive and eternal, says the Katyayana Shruti. So the Vedas themselves say that they are Nitya. So moving on from these basic concepts of actually understanding, getting a deep understanding of the Vedas, and again, I would recommend all of us to read Paricheda 1 of Tattvanirnaya of Acharya. That gives you the whole scale discussion of the authoritativeness of Vedas. So then the questions comes, Rishis did not compose the Veda, they only intuited the Veda. Yes, that is idea number 7, Veda basics, concept 7. Rishis did not compose the Veda, they only intuited the Veda. Okay. So then you might say, can anybody claim what he says as Veda? There are lots of fake gurus out there at this point. Can they say, oh, I'm going to say something now, this is the Veda? No. Parampara Siddha Veda Vakya Anusaritvad. Okay, that is very important. Vedic passages have certain features and they are always in concordance with the existing Vedas. So when anybody claims that they are saying the Vedas, there are two rules there. One is, does it concur with the previous Vedic sentences? Parampara Siddha Veda Vakya Anusaritvad. Does this fellow who claims that he is intuited the Vedas, does he fit another criteria which is listed beautifully in Brahmanda Purana? Vimshan Lakshanato Anunaha Tapasvi Bahuvedavid Veda Ityeva Yam Pashyet Saveda Jnana Darshana. And our scriptures are very clear on this. It says anybody can't intuit the Vedas. There are certain qualifications. A person who can intuit the Vedas should have at least 20 of the 32 features. That is the minimum qualification. Vimshat Lakshanato. 20 out of 32 features. Our scriptures talk about for a perfect being, they should have 32 lakshanas. For an intuitor of the Vedas, he should have at least 20 out of the 32. Okay? He must be a great tapasvi and he must already know a lot of Vedic hymns. So these are all the criterias to actually say that somebody is eligible or even capable of intuiting the Vedas. Okay? So is anybody like this around at this point of time? We don't know. There may be somebody who is in, I know, somewhere in the Himalayas. They're certainly not coming on TVs or not, they're not YouTubers. Yeah. So there must be some rishis out there who can intuit. We don't know. Okay. We will never know that. But these are all the criteria. Our ancient rishis, yeah, if you take Rig Veda, 10 mandalas, right? Vishwamitra mandala, Vamana mandala, Shatarshi mandala, etc., etc. Those rishis had this at least 20 of the 32 features and they were able to intuit the Vedas. Okay? Important ideas. Now, here is an important counter argument from the Nyaya school, and for that, from that particular point of view, from anybody. Just because the Veda is Apaurushaya Nitya does not prove that it is authoritative. Okay? Think about it. Just because somebody says this is authorless and this is eternal, how can that make that very authoritative? That cannot be the reason. Okay? To accept a statement is valid, we have to accept that it is based on the utterance of an authoritative person. Okay? That is our normal experience, isn't it? If the president comes and makes a statement or a prime minister comes and makes a statement, we take it as fact, okay? As authoritative statement. Okay? So that is called apta. So how can you give that aptatva to something that is apaurushaya nitya? Apaurushaya, Vedas do not have a composer. Therefore, they cannot be authoritative. Okay, that is a very, very strong argument. Just because it is authorless, it does not make it authoritative. Okay, so anybody can actually ask you this question. We should be equipped to answer this as Sanatanis. Okay, so this is a view of the Nyaya school. God is there. God is omniscient. God composed the Veda. So Veda is authoritative. Okay, so that may be a view of Nyaya, but we've already, said that circular argument is not possible because there was never a point where creation happened that Paramatma brought it forwards and he composed the Vedas. That is the Vedantic view. Here is where Acharya makes a very, very important statement. And this is again something that we need to keep contemplating and thinking about this. Okay, I'll read the sentence again. Just because Veda is Apaurushaya Nitya does not prove that it is authoritative. To accept a statement as valid, we have to accept that it is based on the utterance of an authoritative person. Acharya will say, Pramanyam cha swata eva, anyata anavasthanam. So, self-validity of knowledge. Yeah, it is a key philosophical idea. So, and I'll give you an example to try and think about what is that self-validity of knowledge. Yes, Shobha Srinivasanji, GVG.
Namaskaram. You told about the lakshanas for the people who can only utter the Vedas, not compose the rishis, the 20 lakshanas. See, the 20 lakshanas is in the 12th Taratamya, where Yama, Surya, Chandra, and all are 20. They have 20 lakshanas. Whereas after that, from the 13th Taratamya onwards, the 13th Kaksha Taratamya onwards, it is lesser. It is not 20. It is 19, 18, 17. And so when Narada, when it comes to the 14th Kaksha Taratamya, doesn't even have 20 lakshanas. So what kind of rishis are they are telling about this 20 lakshana of for uttering this Vedas rather?
Namaskar, Hari. I want to interject for Mrs. Shobha here, please.
Yeah. Introduce yourself.
See, the thing is, nowadays, I feel we lost a lot of things, slowly losing. In olden days, I remember as a small boy, for Alankara Panthi, there are Lakshanas. The Lakshana Brahmbro only, they will make you to see. It is not only, see, somebody may be a great Panditaru, but they have to look at the Anga Lakshana. There are so many other Mudra Lakshana in the Brahmbro. Then plus they have the Panditaro, Sudha Panditaro, whatever the academic qualification, plus other Lakshanas they look. So even in Kali Yuga, even recent years, we followed this even for Alankar Panthi. Then what to talk about the Vedas? I want to stop.
Yeah, thank you for those two contributions. Thank you. So we will move on. So I'll come to this. So pramanyam swata eva. So this is important. Validity of the Vedas is you don't need somebody else to say Vedas are valid. That is the point. Vedas are self-valid. How is that possible? Okay. So I've given two examples here. So this is a ground where ants are going here. Okay, ants are moving on the ground. And they've made a something that looks like the letter V. Think about that one. Ants have made a letter V on the ground. And when I see that letter V, I think about Vishnu. Yeah, that letter that is composed by an ant is saying V, and I know that V stands for Vishnu. Okay. So there, what ants have come, ants are not aptas, right? But still that V is self-valid because that gives you the real knowledge of Vishnu. Okay. Take another contradictory view. You have some cows on the field, and there is a person out there who says, cow is there. A person says a cow is in the field. If the cows are really there, and he says cow is there in the field, that is a true statement. That is called pramanya. Okay. Now you take another two examples. The cow is there. A person says dog is in the field. That is a false statement, right? That is apramanya. The cow is not there and a person says cow is in the field. That is also a false statement. That is apramanya. So think about this very simple example. So if the cow is there, then the validity is there itself, not in the person who said this. So that is swataha pramanya in a very simple example. The fact that the cow is there already is a statement. It is a fact. You don't need some other person to say, oh, the cow is there in the field. The cow is already there. So it is swataha pramanya. Whereas apramanya is parataha. Yeah. Apramanya in this example is due to the person who is telling a lie. So apramanyam parataha. So this is a key philosophical idea. So the view there is the authorless Vedic statements are self-valid. It does not require an apta to test its validity. Swataha pramanyam. Pramanyam swataha apramanyam parataha. Okay, so I'm kind of retracing.
Sorry,
yeah.
One nimsha. The previous one, a person says cow is not there in that one. A person says cow is in the field is not a false statement. Cow is not there is the false statement, isn't it?
Correct. So if the person says a false statement, that is apramanya. So the apramanyatva there is in the person who is saying it. It is not in the cow itself. The cow is there on the field. That is a self-valid thing.
No, I understand. But you're writing there, a person says cow is in the field. A person is saying cow is not in the field, right? That
so
is
here in the third example here, I've said cow is not there.
Yeah.
The cow may not be there. A person is saying cow is in the field.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cow is not okay. I was looking at the picture and then seeing this.
Yeah, sorry. So that is,
no, my mistake. No, it's not your.
Yeah.
Another quick question, Henry. In the just because Veda is Rishi at the top, you had mentioned Nyaya school, but the authors of Nyaya school also have contributed in Vedas, right?
So I think
for example, Gautama Rishi, for example, he's seen in both the places, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, that is true. I think I don't know in what perspective Gautama Rishi looked at the Nyaya view there.
So I'm curious now if one person is actually is a proponent of the school itself and says that don't believe in this, or I don't know whether to believe, is kind of it can be taken both ways, isn't it? Like one is like I am just giving my opinion here, but don't believe me, go and find it yourself. Maybe it can be taken that way, or I don't know whether there is another way to take it. I'm sorry not to take too much time here. Sorry.
Yeah. So the Nyaya school accepts the authoritativeness of the Vedas. Yeah, that is a given. So they have accepted Vedas are authoritative, but the only subtle point there is Nyaya has accepted that the Vedas is authoritative because it is composed by Paramatma himself, who is omniscient. Yeah. So they have not refuted the Vedas such as the Tathagata and Arhata schools. Yeah.
I see. So it's not like Charvakas, but it is
No,
just
no.
other way around. Okay.
Charvaka, Tathagata, and Arhatas, they have rejected the Vedas. Nyayas, they're very much in Vedas, but it is just that subtle point. They accept the validity of the Vedas because their view is God has created this and He's omniscient.
I see. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm
No
sorry.
worries. Yeah. So now we understand. So basically, what I've done for this presentation is I'm walking backwards on the Paricheda one of Tattva Nirnayam. Okay. So you can say, all right, Vedas are Apaurusheya, they are Nitya, they're Swataha Pramanya, they are the supreme source of authority. Who cares? Okay. Nacha Paurusheyam Vakyameva Nasti iti Vacham. Unauthoredness is illogical. There cannot be a text that cannot be composed by anybody. Is our Tathagata friend who comes in this year in the 12th century when this argument is going on. Okay. This is illogical. You cannot have an unauthored text. There has to be an authored text to decide what is right and wrong. So this is where the fundamental questions of philosophy come in. And again, my request here is just think about it. Read the Tattva Nirnaya, which gives you that foundation for Veda's authoritativeness. So this is where Acharya makes a very important statement. Tadabhave sarva samayabi mata dharmadi asiddhehe. So this is a key concept. If we had known all this, now there won't be any, the utopian situation would be, there would be no wars, there would be no discussions and arguments saying, I am right and you are right, your right is my wrong, and so on. Because if we accept something that is not composed by anybody, then the concepts of dharma and adharma is established in that situation. Okay, so I'll run through this idea. It's a little complex. Okay, we all know what dharma is. Okay, I've listed here that which sustains, is established, affirmed, steadfast decree, statute, law, practice, custom, duty, right, justice, virtue, morality, ethics, religion, religious merit, good works, nature, character, quality, property, right way of living, path of righteousness, and so on. 56 times the word dharma appears in the Rig Veda. Okay. In its broadest sense, all religions of the world and philosophies have accepted that dharma and adharma, that is right and wrong, exist. That we all accept, right? But the key question there is, has anybody perceived such entities such as dharma and adharma? Okay. Dharma or adharma should not be assumed based on personal preferences, statements, or compositions. One man's right is another man's wrong, which is the fundamental reason for all the problems that we see at this point of time when we switch on our televisions. Because one man's right is another man's wrong. How does one establish in the absolute sense, this is dharma and this is adharma? What are the eternal values? Okay, so the Acharya says, unless a scriptural authority is evoked, existence of dharma and adharma itself cannot be proven. Heaven, hell, God cannot be established on a firm basis without an independent, unauthored proof. Okay, so this is how the argument actually starts, but I have walked backwards here to try and bring you to this concept of right and wrong. What are the absolute criteria for dharma and adharma, for which you have to go to Apaurusheya text. If you go to Paurusheya text, then one man's wrong is another man's right, and everybody fights in the name of religion and philosophy. Sanatana Dharma takes an entirely different view from all this. And this is our concepts of dharma and adharma does not come from a person who has said it. It comes from an unauthored text for us, which is called the Vedas. So that is where the foundation is. Okay. If, for example, our Tathagatas say, I don't accept dharma. Dharma is also a mithya entity. It does not exist. It is an imaginary construct. Then it will lead to a whole lot of chaos in society. So that kind of philosophy does not usually help any of us. So, yasyato nabimato naso samayi samaya prayojana abhava. Okay. So think about these ideas about dharma, adharma, why you need Apaurusheya concepts, what are the ideas of Apaurusheya, the Swataha Pramanya, Nityatva, and Apaurusheya makes Vedas authoritative. And that Vedas comes from Vak Vivrutashta Vedaha. So I don't want to digress here. I just want to still pull you back to what is it that we are talking in Mundaka Upanishad. Okay, I accept dharma. Okay. But the question is, why can't works of knowledgeable persons be the source of dharma and adharma? Okay, so this is an important idea. Why can't the head of my philosophy, he has said this is right, that is wrong. Why can't I accept this? Why should I have to accept something that is authorless? Nacha paurushena vakyena tatsidihi ajnana vipralamboyoho praptehe. Key statement, all are subjected to ignorance and deceit, okay? Except Parashukla Trayas in Tattvavada, except Parashukla Trayas, all others are subject to ignorance or deceit. So who is going to tell us who are the Parashukla Trayas? Just a brief pause there. Who wants to tell us who are the Parashukla Trayas in Vedic philosophy?
Vayu, Brahma, or Mahalakshmi?
Yeah, thank you very much, Anandji. So Bharati
Saraswati,
also is there.
Saraswati Bharati we need to include.
Saraswati, Bharati, and Chaturmukha Vayu. Yeah, fantastic. All other
Yeah, I
guys.
forgot the third one.
Thank you. So all others are subject to ignorance and deceit. Whether you like it or not, that is the Vedic position. Okay. Then the question will be, what if this is an all-knowing person? Then the Acharya will say, how do you know somebody is an all-knowing person? Okay. To know somebody is an all-knowing person, the person who makes that claim must himself be all-knowing. Unless he knows everything, he cannot make a judgment on another person to say he is all-knowing. So these are all the philosophical arguments. So essentially, what it boils down to is we have to make too many assumptions when we accept the words of some person as authoritative. Because everybody is subject to ajnana, vipralamba, pramada, apatukaranatva. Okay, so this is what is ajnana is ignorant, vipralamba, pramada, it means that he may know everything, but still he may not want to say everything, and he may tell lies. Apatukaranatva, his sense organs may not be right, his karma indriyas are not good, and he may not be able to spell something properly. So that is also possible. And how also, where is the proof that this person has only composed this? Somebody might have written something, say 2000 years ago, and now you're saying he is composed. Where are the proofs? Those kind of arguments. Okay. So if we have to take the words of a person as authoritative, we have to make a lot of assumptions. Okay. What are the assumptions? That he is omniscient, that he does not tell lies, that he would not want to deceive, that he's got all his sense organs working properly, that he is the person that he has composed this. So you have to make a lot of assumptions. Okay. What if God is the author of the Veda? That is also an assumption at this stage of the argument. And we have discussed that before, saying that he cannot be the author of Veda because of eternal cycles. Okay. So these assumptions are not great in philosophical disputations and philosophical discussions, because there is something called Occam's razor. Some of you who may be familiar with Western philosophy will know this. William of Ockham. He's not too far away from here, actually, Ockham. So he's one of the big philosophers, along with the great realistic philosophers like Thomas Aquinas. Okay. His view was, all things being equal, the simplest solution tends to be the best one. Okay. A solution with fewer assumptions is more authoritative than a solution with many assumptions. Okay. And if we say that 1% is authoritative, what he says is right, which is the source of all the problems in the world at this point, then we are making too many assumptions. Okay. So the Vedic view, the Vedantic view is, Vedas are apaurushya, they are supremely authoritative. No further assumptions made around that. Okay. So I hope that idea is helpful, but I just want to close this discussion with this particular idea, because this is important for us, because we are practitioners of Sanatana Dharma and Vedantic philosophy. So Prasthana Trayi is very important. So the question for Vedantic philosophy then comes in is, we have all accepted Prasthana Traya or Trayi, however you want to say, and we call this as authoritative for us. Vak Vivritashta Vedaha is done now, but then we also have two additional concepts that makes it Prasthana Trayi. Okay, so I have put a question there to just get us thinking about this problem. What is Prasthana Traya? Who wants to share their ideas with us, please? What is Prasthana Traya? In Vedantic philosophy, all three schools of Vedantas have accepted Prasthana Trayas as authoritative. So let's start off with, what is Prasthana Traya?
Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, and what is Upanishads.
Upanishad.
Upanishads. Sorry.
Fantastic. So we had Prakash, Prakash, you had unmuted. Pratibha ji and Ramesh ji, you had also unmuted. You concur with what has been said so far or different?
Yeah, it's correct. Brahma Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, and Upanishads. They're Prasthanatraya.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, everyone. So, Sutra Prasthana, Gita Prasthana, and Upanishad Prasthana. These are the three authoritative texts of the Hindus, if you like. Okay. So, here is another one. I just want to put this in context so that we understand what's going on here. So, on the one side, we have Prasthana Trayas. Brahma Sutra Prasthana, Gita Prasthana, Upanishad Prasthana. 564 aphorisms, 700 verses. On the left, Upanishad Prasthana. On the right, 108 Upanishads. Now maybe Upanishads have to be infinite because Vedas are infinite. And these Upanishads come from Vak Vivrutashta Vedaha. They are coming from Vak Vivrutashta Vedaha. But look at I've just told you that if somebody is saying something, we have to be how can we be absolutely sure that somebody is authoritative? Okay, here is the difficult situation for us to square this circle. I have been ranting for 30 minutes about how Vedas are authorless, so they are authoritative. But now I am saying, guys, in Hindu, in the Sanatana Dharma, there are two texts that are composed by an individual, and that is also authoritative for us. So what are those two? Brahma Sutra and Gita. Okay. So here is a quick question, view on who composed the Gitas. Anybody wants to tell us who composed the Gita? Is it Krishna or Vedavyasa?
Vedavyasa.
Vedavyasa.
Thank you, Padmaja ji. So who was the second person who answered it?
Myself, Pannaga.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Panaga ji. Yeah, so yeah, Vedavyasa composed Gita. Okay, let's not forget that. Vedavyasa composed the Gita, documented the Gita for a conversation that happened between Krishna and Arjuna. What that conversation happened, to be honest, I don't know, but Vedavyasa has documented that for us long before Mahabharata actually happened. Okay, he has documented that, and we call that as Gita, Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, 700. Brahma Sutra. Who composed the Brahma Sutra? In the 15th, in Gita, what did Krishna said? Vedanta Krit. Veda Videvechaham. So Vedanta Krit. Vedanta is Brahma. Vedanta Sutra is Brahma Sutra. Okay. 564 aphorisms. So you have Vedavyasa, who is a person who has composed Brahma Sutra and Gita Prasthana. Yet, we Sanatanis, we have accepted Prasthana Trayi as the most authoritative text of the Hindus. Okay. How do we know Vedavyasa is authoritative? In Tattva Prakashika, Jayatirtha has said, Vakya Pramanyam Tavat Nirdoshataya Sambhavati. Nirdoshata cha Aporusheyataya Apti Mulataya cha. Yeah, Apti Mulataya. How do we know that Vedavyasa is authoritative? Okay, so it's a big point. And we as practitioners of Vedanta, I think we just need to be, this has to be firmed up in us that what Vedavyasa has composed is authoritative. That is why we have Prasthanatraya. That is why we talk a lot about Sutra, Gita, Upanishad. Yeah, so hold on to that. But here, of course, these are the three big tests, right? Sutra, Gita, and Upanishad. But the fundamental position that comes in Mundaka Upanishad itself, that saying that there are 7 primary scriptures for Sanatana Dharma. Okay. So when we were doing Isha Upanishad, we did that particular verse, isn't it? I just want to bring it back. Anejadekam manasa javiyo nainad devaha apnuvan purvamarshate thaddavato anyan atyeti tishtati smin matarishva dadati. Tishtati asmin apo matarishva dadati. So there, if you can recall, when we were doing that Ishavasya Upanishad, we were looking about Matarishva. Who is this chap called Matarishva? Ashapta Shivasu Matrushu. That person who is constantly loitering around the 7 scriptures. Sapta Shivasu Matrushu is Matarishva. Comes from the Rig Veda, Balikta Sukta. So what are the 7 scriptures for us? As practitioners of Sanatana Dharma, you have the 4 Vedas, Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva. Then you have Mahabharata. Then you have Pancharatragama. Then you have Moola Ramayana. not Valmiki Ramayana, Moola Ramayana, as Brahmanda Purana talks about. So Rik, Sama, Yajur, Atharva, Bharata, Pancharatragama, and Moola Ramayana. So these are the 7 primary scriptures. Okay. So in the Bharata is Gita, that is Gita Prasthana. Okay. Then Rik, Sama, Yajur is the Vedas, and the portions of the Vedas is Upanishads. They become Upanishad Prasthana. And then Veda Vyasa composed the Brahma Sutra there so that we ordinary mortals can understand the Upanishads and the Gita so that we can make the sense out of it and try and work our salvation. That is the Brahma Sutra's position. Yeah, Nirnayaka Shastra as it's called. Yeah, it decides how to interpret the Gita and Upanishads. Yeah, that is the dictionary or the Supreme Court that judges the interpretations of the Gita and the Upanishad is the Sutras. Then, of course, all others that concur with these 7 are also authoritative, such as the Purana, Bhagavatam, for example, or anything else that we say that concurs with the Vedas is authoritative. Okay? So those are the kind of a basics about scriptures that we need to understand. But I just want to bring this idea about how can we accept Veda Vyasa as the authoritative person. After all, it is composed, isn't it? I've just told you that you cannot have. What if this is not an all-knowing person? How do you know that he does not have ignorance? How do you know he is not doing Vipralamba, Pramada, Apatukaranatva? Yeah, so all those issues are there. So we need to be equipped to try and answer this question as to why Veda Vyasa is apta and authoritative. Then we can accept the Prasthana Trayas and all the other compositions. Let's not forget, Pancharatragama is also composed by Veda Vyasa. Moola Ramayana also is composed by Veda Vyasa. Puranas are also composed with Veda Vyasa. How do you know all these things are authoritative? Because only Rik, Sama, Yajur, Atharva is Apaurushaya. All others are Paurushaya. Okay. So how to establish that a composer of a work is authoritative? Apti Mulata comes with 4 criteria. He should be knowledgeable, no intentions to deceive, desire to teach, and ability to communicate. Prakashji.
Now, the question here is, we accept Veda Vyasa as an all-knowing person, is apta, we accept that. But Veda Vyasa himself has composed certain Puranas where, Skanda Purana or other Puranas, where he says that other than Vishnu, somebody else is also great. So, from our philosophy, we say that, for the Tamasvik Jivas, it is to give that their gati. But still, how do you explain for a person who is not into this, accepting this Triveda Jivas, how do you say that it's not deceiving those people? Because the Vipralamba is there when he talks about those things. So how will he justify that?
So good question, Prakashji. But for those of us who are familiar with these ideas, jivas are of 3 criteria, 3 types. And if a tamasa jiva, for example, for the jamasa jiva, in the Puranas, when something else is said, for the tamasa jiva, that is not a vipralamba. The tamasa jiva sees that as the truth for it. That it says, oh, that is right. So the Veda Vyasa is not doing vipralamba to a tamasic jiva. For a tamasic jiva, he has done a great service in that sense that they are able to, based on their own swabhavas, they understand ideas in such a way that eventually it leads them to andatamas. So I haven't understood like that he is doing vipralamba for tamasa jivas. For tamasa jivas, that is how they understand, and he has actually given he has done a huge service for them. So they understand it that way and do it. But if you're a satvika diva, even that idea, you will use Brahma Sutra and understand it differently. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Anyway, let's come back to it. So Apti Mulata. So now so I'm just saying here why we have to understand Veda Vyasa is authoritative. Yeah. So Apti is authoritativeness of an author. How is that established? He should be knowledgeable, no intention to deceive, desire to teach, and ability to communicate. What is called as Vaktru, Shrotru, Prasanga, and so on. So the claim here, this is just a claim at this point as we navigate this slide. This is just a claim at this point that we are saying Veda Vyasa is authoritative because he satisfies all these 4 criteria. He is very knowledgeable. He has no intention to deceive. He's got a desire to cheat and ability to communicate. The first one being very important, knowledgeable. We are just claiming that he is knowledgeable. Okay. Now here is the question. So somebody from another school outside Sanatana Dharma may come and ask you, anybody can claim that the composer of the scripture is authoritative. Yeah. How can you claim Veda Vyasa is authoritative? Okay. So anybody wants to share their ideas here. How can we claim Veda Vyasa is authoritative? Anybody wants to come here?
Only one thing which we can say is, one thing is it is very old, number one. And then the other religions, they do not have this Apurushaya concept at all. So somebody to write in line with the Apurushaya Vedas, I don't think anybody else has done. So these 2 things qualify him to be a person who is Sarvajna. And also, he has done a lot of, for example, when he wrote the Mahabharata, it was before the event happened. So the prediction of the future, how it will be exactly, all those things we can say that he is the Sarvajna. I mean, at least few points which I can think of.
Thank you very much, Prakash. Anybody else wants to come in? Anand.
I think one of the reasons could be all the 3 great acharyas have gone to great lengths to demonstrate their congruence with the Prasthanatrayis. So they all agree, although they have different interpretations of their own schools, but they all agree that Prasthanatrayi is the basis. And on that basis, I think there is an acceptance that Vedavyasa is the right person.
Thank you very much, Anandji. Just a quick reminder there, the 3 schools of Vedanta that have taken Veda Vyasa, only 2 of the 3 have actually accepted that Veda Vyasa is omniscient. The second one, the third one has only, I'm not going to name anybody. So the third one has just accepted Veda Vyasa as a Maharishi. Okay, so there's only 2 who have accepted him as omniscient. The other one has accepted him, not the whole. A part of the third school has accepted that he is Maharishi. But anyway, I'll put it there. But thank you, Anand. Anybody else? If not, let's move on. So, of course, okay, in Gita, he said, Muninam aham vyasaha. Okay, fine, you're saying that, but still, here what is happening? Veda Vyasa himself has composed a work, and in that work itself, he is claiming he is Vyasa. So you could actually turn this around and say, how can the person who has authored that one himself claim that he is Vyasa? Okay. And again, Vedashta sarve rahame Veda, Vedanta krit Veda videvacha. These are all popular verses for us. So in these verses, Veda Vyasa himself has written something and he himself is claiming, I am Vyasaha. That is as claiming that Krishna is saying that he is Vyasa. Okay. Composed by Veda Vyasa himself. So there appears to be a bit of a conflict of interest here in Veda Vyasa when he is composing this. So how do we address this? Prakashji shared some beautiful ideas there. Anandji also shared some beautiful ideas that there is a parampara there that we have all accepted that Veda Vyasa is authoritative. Okay. So let me try and make an attempt to try and bring in the various evidences here to try and prove why Veda Vyasa is authoritative and apta. Okay. Because after all, he is the one who has compiled the Vedas, right? We will not be doing Mundaka Upanishad unless Veda Vyasa had composed this. So iPhone 4, I don't know who it is. Please introduce.
Namaskara. Actually, as of now, no one came out with a better, documentary like Upanishads or anything than whatever is Veda Vyasa provided. That also we can take, There is no counter works done by any other non-Sanatana Dharma people.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't quite. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Krishnaraj, New
Oh,
Jersey.
Krishnaraj. Oh, hello. Yes, Krishnaraj. Welcome back. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, G.V. Srinivasan.
So there is this in the 13th chapter. So Krishna himself says that his Gita, for validation of Gita, he says that it is coming from Brahma Sutra. Rishibir Bahuda Gitam, Chando Bir Vividai Pratak, Brahma Sutra Patashchaiva Hetur Padbhir Vinishchitam. So he's kind of, like basically implying the Gita has a validation from Brahma Sutra.
Okay, thank you, Srinivasanji. Again, the problem remains that Brahma Sutra also is composed by Veda Vyasa. Gita also is composed by Veda Vyasa. And then and internally he's saying this is coming from that, and the Brahma Sutra validates Gita and so on. So I see where you're coming from. Just for the argument's sake, I'm just saying that both works are written by Veda Vyasa. And how do we know this Veda Vyasa is Apta? Okay, so it could be an argument from other schools, other philosophies, for example. So I will, maybe in the next 10-15 minutes, I'll make an attempt to try and link everything, and we will close today's session on Vak Vivritashta Veda. So we accept that Krishna is Vishnu's avatar. Okay, so that we accept. Okay, and so let's start from that angle. So we accept Krishna is Vishnu's avatar. Okay, the etymology of Vishnu is what? Vishal Vyaptav. That being that is all pervasive is called Vishnu, not just because he's lying on a snake or he's got 4 hands with various bits and bobs. That is possible. That is also true. But primarily it gives you a sense of who the supreme being is, that he is all pervasive. So then we understand all pervasive in our system is called Brahman. Atakasmad uchyate brahmeti bruhanto hi asmin gunaha. That is the definition of Brahman. He who is all pervasive. All pervasive in what? Time, space, and gunas. Vishnu is what? All pervasive. All pervasive in what? Time, space, and gunas. So our Acharya in the very first sutra, in the Sutra Bhashya, resolves this Brahma Shabdashta Vishnaveva. So that we all accept. Brahma Shabdashta Vishnaveva. Come to Mundaka Upanishad itself, in the very first Kanda, when we were talking about Paravidya and Aparavidya and all that, Tapasa chiyate Brahma, tato annam abhijayate. So Tapasa chiyate Brahma says Angirasa. Okay, so that Brahma then means what? The Brahma of Angirasa is an all omniscient being, not a zero being. Yeah, it is not a nirguna entity of Angirasa. He has made it very clear here. Tapasa chiyate Brahma. He thought, and we know that that mind, that thinking of Brahman is full of knowledge. That has also been discussed. So Brahma there, Angirasa's Brahma is Brahma Shabdashta Vishnaveva. Okay. The same Brahma who is Brahma Shabdashta Vishnaveva, the same Mundaka Upanishad, which is Apaurushaya, says, Yes Sarvajnaha Sarvavid Yasya Jnanamayam Tapaha. So this Brahman is Sarvajnaha, omniscient. Yes Sarvajnaha Sarvavid Yasya Jnanamayam Tapaha. That is a very, very key statement here for us to try and understand why this Veda Vyasa is the omniscient being himself. Okay, so Brahman is Yes Sarvajnaha. Okay. Now, still the question is, how do we know that Veda Vyasa is an incarnation of Narayana, not just a rishi who may not be authoritative? How do we know that this Veda Vyasa is incarnation of Narayana or Vishnu who is Sarvajna? Okay, that is also a question, right? That we need to convince ourselves. So, let me go to the next slide. Okay, so Veda Vyasa is an incarnation of Narayana, Vishnu. This is given in so many places, and I just wanted to summarize this. So we know the Skanda Purana that I think Prakashji was mentioning, and we know that even at the beginning of Anuvyakyana and Sutra Bhashya and so on, there is a history as to why Veda Vyasa made the sutras in the first place. Yeah, Krishna Raji.
Yeah, see, again, whatever the topic we are discussing on same point, even if you equate, if you prove Veda Vyasa is Narayana or Mahavishnu or Paramatma, but how do you convince others saying that Vishnu, Narayana, Paramatma, Hari is the supreme? Again, we go into a same argument, am I right?
Yes, you're going to the same argument, but that is where, yeah, you're right. I'm coming to that in the next slide. So stay with me, Krishnaraji. So in Skanda Purana, yeah, it gives you a history of how Veda Vyasa was born. Yeah. So Narayanam, which is a Sharan, okay. Avatirno Mahayogi, Satyavattam Parasharat, Utsannan Bhagavan Vedan, Ujjahara Harihi Swayam. Okay? Skanda Purana says that about how this Hari he Swayam, he took birth in Satyavati and Parashara. Then again, the problem there is Skanda Purana also is composed by Veda Vyasa. So conflict of interest again. Pragnesh. Okay, Pragnesh has raised his hand, but he's, I think he's muted or he has IT problems. So if you also look at other, if you look at Mahabharata Harivamsa Parva, Mahabharata Shanti Parva, Srimad Bhagavatam, Vishnu Purana, they all talk about this Veda Vyasa as an incarnation of Narayana. But these are all again authored texts. Bhagavatam, who wrote Bhagavatam? Veda Vyasa. Vishnu Purana, who wrote this? Veda Vyasa. Mahabharata, who wrote? Veda Vyasa. So there is this internal problem. So how do you resolve this? So the resolution of this has to go back to the Vedas. So that is where the argument is, as Krishna Rajji was mentioning, that to prove Veda Vyasa is omniscient, and that Veda Vyasa is an incarnation of Narayana or Vishnu, the final establishing any authority, it has to go to Apaurushaya Veda. We have to go to Apaurushaya Veda, and this is a unique concept of Sanatana Dharma, where we have accepted that with all the arguments that I've told you over the last 1.5 to 2 hours, that Veda is Apaurushaya. What Veda says is authoritative. Okay? So we have to go to the Vedas and search for the proofs. Where is the proof that Veda Vyasa is incarnation of Narayana or Vishnu? Okay? The first thing we have to prove is Vishnu is the highest deity of the Vedas. There itself, there is a problem. Okay, there are folks who say otherwise, but for others, for certain Vedantis, Vishnu is the highest being. He is the 18th. He is the 18th number, and the first in the Vedic pantheon is Narayana. We have to go to Rig Veda itself. I'll just pick one. Tad Vishnoho Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Surayaha. So the Rig Veda itself says Vishnu's abode is the highest. Okay. Tad Vishnoho Paramam Padam. Katha Upanishad also says that. Okay. Taittiriya Upanishad, Sanno Vishnur Urukramaha. Brihadaranyaka Vishnu, Vishnur Yonim Kalpayat. Yeah. So the Vedas themselves declare that Vishnu is the highest. So then if you look at Vishnu Sahasranama, we have said, of course, in Gita, that Muninam Aham Vyasaha is Gita is saying. But if you look at Vishnu Sahasranama, Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya, Vyasa Rupaya Vishnave. So Vishnu Sahasranama is also saying that, Gita is also saying, all the Puranas are also saying that Vyasa and Vishnu are the same. And then we have understood from the Vedas that Vishnu is the highest being of the Vedas, that he is the Paramatma, Purushottama, the most omniscient being out there. Okay. Now still there is a problem. How can you still prove that? Okay, we accept that Vishnu is the highest being, but how can you prove that Veda Vyasa is incarnation of Vishnu? Go to Mundaka Upanishad. What did we do? Tatra apara rigvedo yajurvedaha samavedo atharva vedaha siksha kalpo vyakaranam niruktam chando jyotishamiti ata para yaya tad aksharam adhigamyate. That body of text that gives you the knowledge of akshara is paravidya. Yeah. What does this akshara does? Yata urnanabi sujate gurhnate cha yata pruthivyam oshadayaha sambhavati yata sataha purushat keshalo mani tata aksharat sambhavati iha vishwam. This akshara is the creator of the universe. Janmadhyasya yataha. The same Mundaka Upanishad then says, Divyo hi amurtaha purushaha sabhakya bhi antaro hi ajaha aprano hi manaha shubro hi aksharat parataha paraha. This aksharat is defined as parataha paraha, which is what the Purushottama as discussed in 1518. And the same Mundaka Upanishad, this akshara is sarvajnaha. So now what we have to do is we have to prove this akshara is this Veda Vyasa or Vishnu. Okay. For this, I just want to do this link because we know that we have done Isha Upanishad, right? In Isha Upanishad, we have done this where we looked at Balitta Sukta and Pranagni Sukta. I've just taken this example to show that the Vedas themselves show that Narayana's incarnation is Veda Vyasa. I've just taken this example. For those of you who want to research this a bit further, there is a work by Yadavarayar. Yeah, Yadava Acharya has done a work called Veda Vyasa Kalambana Stotras, where he gives additional evidence. So for those of us interested in this, can go and check this out of Yadava Acharya.
Madhuji, is it Karavalambana Swatam? Yeah.
Yeah.
Karavalambana.
Kalabala. Correct. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So, but I just want to take this particular verse from Rig Veda itself, the Balikta Suktam, that again gives you the evidence, yeah, as to why we have to accept Veda Vyasa as Apta or omniscient. Okay, so that is Pranagni Sukta, right? Anybody wants to recite this? We got about 5 to 10 minutes. Quick recitation of Balikta Sukta. Anybody? No problem. Okay. So Balikta Sukta, as you know, it comes in Rig Veda. So that talks about what happens to Vayu in a Mukhya Vritti interpretation. So I was, so last year when I was in Bangalore, I met Prabhanjanacharya. And I had a very beautiful discussion with Prabhanjanacharya, where he was telling me that at that point, he was writing this work on Balikta Suktam, of course in Sanskrit, and he was writing in great detail about Balikta Suktam, taking Narayana as a Parama Mukhya Vritti and Vayu as Mukhya Vritti, and he was doing this composition. And that gave me the inspiration to try and find the answers to this, as to why, how can we prove Veda Vyasa is Vishnu himself? So if you go to Balikta Sukta, yeah, so what does it say? Balikta tad vapusheda idarshatam devasya bargaha sahaso yato janim yadim upaharate sadate matihi ritasya dena anayanta sashrutaha pruksho vapuhu pituman nitya ashaye dvitiyam ashapta shivashu matrusu tritiyam asya vrishabasya dohase dashapramatim janayanta yoshanaha, and it goes on. So from a Mukhya Vritti, it talks about the Vayu. Yeah. Balikta, who is the Dirgatama Rishihi, Vayu Devata, Jagati Chandaha. So that is how this mantra goes. So when you look at the Mukhya Vritti, that is the primary, not the primary, the Mukhya is the literal interpretation of this. It talks about Vayu and his avatara. So in Treta Yuga, Rig Veda says, so again, this is important. Ramayana has been documented in the Vedas. It is not that Veda Vyasa has composed it. It is documented already in the Vedas. So Treta Yuga, Vayu takes the incarnation of Hanuman. In Dwapara Yuga, he takes the avatar of Bhimasena. In Kali Yuga, he comes down as Purna Prajna to give us the right knowledge. Yeah, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga is what the Rig Veda talks about in Balikta Suktam. But when you look at it from Parama Mukhya Vritti, because Atapara Yaya Tad Aksharam Adigamyate. So we have to take every word, sound, letter of the Vedas as talking only about Paramatma. When you take that view, Parama Mukhya Vritti, what is it actually talking about? The Pranagni Sukta is talking about Narayana and his avatars. Okay. In Treta Yuga, he comes as Lord Rama, and Hanuman serves him. In Dwapara Yuga, he takes two avatars, primary avatars. He comes as Lord Krishna. Bhimasena serves him. Then he comes as Veda Vyasa also in the Dwapara Yuga. And then in the Dwapara Yuga, what is he doing? He's a key character in the Mahabharata, as we know, but at the same time, at the end of Dwapara Yuga, when much of the knowledge is not, he pulled down all the Vedas together, then he wrote the sutras, then he composed all the Puranas, Bhagavatam, and so on. That itself proves that he is omniscient. No person can do so much of work. Okay, 100,000 granthas of Pancharatragama, 100,000 granthas of Mula Ramayana, 60 lakh granthas of Mahabharata, 18 Puranas, 18 Upapuranas, and then compiling all the Vedas together and so on. So unless somebody is omniscient, he can't do it, but Veda Vyasa does that. So Narayana takes two avatars in Dwapara Yuga, Lord Krishna and Lord Veda Vyasa. Of course, our scriptures say that God doesn't take any avatars in Kali Yuga, but he comes at the end of Kali Yuga. But for Satvika Jivas to find their salvation so that they get the right knowledge and do their sadhanas, he sends his messengers down here so that we get the right knowledge. And one way of Vedanta is Purna Prajna comes in Kali Yuga, which is documented in Rig Veda, so that he serves Badarayana or Veda Vyasa. And we know from all the historical sketches that he goes to Badrikashrama, etc., etc. You can check it out in Narayana Panditacharya's Madhva Vijaya. So I just want to give you a glimpse here. So even to prove that Veda Vyasa is an incarnation of Narayana and that Veda Vyasa is omniscient, you still have to go to an authorless text to prove that Veda Vyasa is authoritative. And then show that why we have Prasthana Trayi, where you have Gita Prasthana and Sutra Prasthana. In fact, Sutra Prasthana is higher than Gita Prasthana and then the Upanishad Prasthana. After all, the Vedas are under the control of the Supreme. Yeah. So Vedas are not independent entities. They are jadas themselves and they are under the control of the Supreme. So Sutra Prasthana, Gita Prasthana, Upanishad Prasthana. In that order is how certain schools of Vedanta takes this. So I hope I have not digressed this too much, because that is the key idea for us, Apaurushaya and Apta, and that Vak Vivritashta Vedaha Tasmad Ruchaha Samani Ejumshi Dikshaha. Okay. So this Veda, so I want to close with two key ideas today. So these Vedas are coming out from the speech, it's coming out from the mouth of Brahman, Vak Vivritashta Vedaha. Yet some folks think that there is the Karma Kanda portion and there is a Jnana Kanda portion. Okay. That is fundamentally a misconception. Because go back to the Mundaka Upanishad itself, that says, Tadetat Satyam Mantreshu Karmani Kavayo Yani Pashyan Tani Tretayam Bahuda Santatani. Okay. In the Satya Yuga, Veda was one and everything was seen as Paravidya in Satya Yuga. After that, the knowledge of people came down, down, and down, that they started dividing into Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Vedas are not Jnana Kanda and are not Karma Kanda. Vedas are one unit which is always Paravidya. It is only us who make this mistake of separating them into Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Okay. There is another thing that I think has to be said. When Angirasa has intuited in Atharva Veda that Vak Vivritashta Vedaha Tasmad Ruchaha Samani Yajumshi, how can only 5 Vakyas be truth declaring? So there are some schools of Vedanta which have taken, there are only 5 Mahavakyas. Among all the things that this Brahman has been uttering, only 5 is Tattva Vedaka, truth declaring. The rest of the Vedas coming out of Brahman is false, deceiving, not truth declaring, Atattva Vedaka. He is talking rubbish. Everything that comes out of Brahman, except the 5, is non-truth declaring. So says one school of Vedanta. And when you look at the internal evidence of Mundaka Upanishad as to what the thinking is, it just is not possible. And again, it is a misconceived view, but everybody is entitled for the view. Every person based on the Swabhava interprets the Vedas in different way. But when you look at the internal evidence, the whole of the Vedas, Tava, Eta, Sarvaha, Richaha, Sarve Vedaha, Sarve Goshaha, Ekaeva Vyahritihi. Prana eva, prana, richa, itieva vidyat, Mahaitare Upanishad of Rigveda. That itself says every sound in the Vedas talk about the greatness of Paramatma. How can we say only 5 of them are truth declaring? I don't see the logic in that. But that is an important idea that we need to think about in this point. Next question, is Veda Satya or Mithya? If Veda is Mithya, then there is no point in taking the views of something that is illusory. If Veda is Satya, then there are 2 reals. One is Paramatma and one is Veda. So again, there is a problem with one school of philosophy. Yeah. If you take one portion of the Veda is truth declaring, but not the other portion, Veda Vyasa has resolved that in the first Adhyaya. Gati Samanyat. Go and check that sutra out. So these are all some of the challenges of appreciating how the Vedas are Apaurushaya. So this is the final couple of slides. God controls and protects the Vedas. Okay, this is, as I told you, Veda is Jada. It comes out of Brahman's mouth, like how we come and the material world comes out. But they are under his control. So next time when you go to the temples and you see Gita, Krishna holding 4 horses, Saibhya, Sugriva, Meha Pushpa, Balahaka, that Agni gave it to Arjuna. What does that actually remind us of? Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, which is under the control of Krishna. Okay, that is the Tasmad Richaha Samani Yajumshi. What do we do? So Krishna has his chariot with 4 horses. And Katha Upanishad tells us that we have a body of 5 horses that has to understand this Veda that is protected by protected by Krishna or Veda Vyasa or Narayana, so that we find our destination. So Paramatma manifested the Vedas, also created all the rules and regulations around studying and living as per the Vedas. So this concept of Shreyas and Preyas and how we have to follow this, that is also there in the Vedas. What are the preconditions? that was also created by Paramatma is what Angirasa is taking us to. So what I had to do for 2 sessions is just to impress the seriousness of what Angirasa is saying. Tasmad richaha samani yajumshi. Then what are the preconditions and rules and regulations? Dikshaha yajnashcha sarve kratavo dakshinashcha samvatsarascha yajamanascha lokaha. Somo yatra pavate yatra suryaha. So that is what this verse actually is. So there is deep, profound philosophies that are that are packed in these verses, because our acharyas tell us what is Vedas. Vedas are chandas. Chandas means what? Chadayanti iti chandamsi. That we have to split open and understand what the rishis are actually telling us. So that is what the rishi is telling, that God created everything. He brought Vedas into manifestation, and he brought souls into the universe so that they can work out their salvation. And because he's so merciful, he also brought in all the rules and regulations. He also gave them the manual. He gives them the manual by which souls can actually go back to him and reach him. Okay, so that is what Angirasa is saying. So what we will do is we'll close at that point. And from next week, I think it's going to be fairly easy riding, like this horse. It's going to be an easy ride where we are going to look at Diksha, Yajnashta, Sarve, Kratavo, Dakshinashta, very interesting concepts of Vedic philosophy. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to close today. Sorry, I went a little over the time, but these were all important ideas to share. Okay, so if anybody has any other questions, we'll discuss it now. If not, we'll close it because of want of.
Sanjay, one question. When we say Vedas are jada, now a jada, how can it have so much of content? Because we can immediately argue and say that the sukshma vastu that is used for creation, that also is nitya, but that is a different aspect. But Vedas being jada and having so much of information in such a structured manner, okay, how can then, if that is the case, how can it have such knowledge embedded in them when being a jada? For example, Chetana, we can understand that Chetana has knowledge inbuilt. But jada, Veda being jada, how can such knowledge be inbuilt in them? So that is the question. How will you answer that question?
Yeah, interesting question, Prakashji. So knowledge has got, let's think about knowledge. So knowledge is, so you got jnana, then you have the jnatra, then you have the jnaya. Okay, so there are 3 components here in this equation. For any knowledge, you need to have jnaya and jnatra. Jnatra is a sentient being that looks at jnaya, which is an insentient thing. When the jnatra looks at the jnaya, then jnana comes to the jnatra. So jnana as an independent entity does not exist out there, certainly not in the Tattvavada school of philosophy. There may be some other school of Vedanta that might think knowledge independently exists. So what I'm trying to say here is, there is a jnatra, there is a jnaya. So we use this Vedas to know this. So that is one aspect to it. But also think about this sutra, Abhimani Vyapadeshastu Visesha Anugatibhyam. Every non-sentient thing in the universe has an Abhimani Devata to this. Okay. Rik, Sama, Yajus, and we have already looked at Agni. We looked at Agni, Soma. We looked at Parjanya, we looked at Surya. So those are one aspect of Abhimani. Shri Tattva Lakshmi is the Abhimani of the Vedas. And then the primary Abhimani of all this is Narayana himself. So never forget Lakshmi Tattva, who is the Abhimani Devata of all the Vedas according to at least Tattvavada. So we as sentient beings use this instrument to gain knowledge. So the knowledge is there in it, but somebody has to get it, isn't it? So that will be the Jnatra who gets the knowledge. Yeah. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea there. And we got somebody else raised hand. I don't know who it is. Is it Krishna Rajji? Yeah, go for it.
See, for example, we have a book. Book is a jada. But when we read, we get the jnana from the book. Am I right? Knowledge. I want to give that as an example. That's all. Crude example.
Yeah.
See, but if you take knowledge as jada, for example, Bhagavanta is not jada. We jivas are not jada. So the jnatru jiva knowing Bhagavan, who is jnana, which is not a jada, and Nyeya, to know about him, the ultimate thing, they're all only Chetanas. If you take that example, the knowledge jada example, it does not fit in there, right? We always take, when you say knowledge is always jada. But in case of Bhagavan, Jnananandamaya, he himself is knowledge. So I'm going to know about him. So that there, in that case, jada will not come, right?
But you have to use, God cannot be known directly, right? He can be known, na avedavin manutetam bruhatam tasman. So you have to use the Vedas to know the Paramatma. So you have to use this Jada Vastu called Vedas to know him is one view. But I can see where your argument is taking us. Yes, that's good. But still, even in that example, you need to have a Nyatri, you need to have a Neya, and then the emergence of knowledge. Without this trilogy, it cannot operate. Is a view. I don't know if anybody else wants to come in here. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, Vedas are Varanas, right? So let's understand this idea. So Vedas are Varanas, Varanas are Dravyas, Dravyas are Padarthas, Padarthas come out during creation, and Brahman is the creator of everything. So he has created the Veda, but Veda is eternal and it comes out from Brahman's mind. And that the eternal sequence of these eternal Varanas is the Vedas, and it is supremely authoritative, and it comes out of Brahman's walk during creation. And what does this Vedas have? The Vedas can do two things. They can give you Paravidya and Aparavidya. Primarily, they talk about Brahman, but secondarily, they may also be giving other information. And also, the Vedas give you those systems and rules by which you can gain Paravidya. So even those systems and rules were also composed or created by Paramatma, is where Angirasa is leading us. And hopefully we will do that in next Sunday's Chintana. So on that note, I will close today's session. And can I ask Anandji to recite Omkara today, and we close today's session?
Okay. Om.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. And see you next week. Stay safe.
Namaskara. Thank you, sir.
Krishna,
Hare
thank you.
Hare Namah.
Hare Srinivasa, namaskar.
Hare Krishna.
Namaskar.